The text came through while I was in a briefing at the Department of Justice. My phone was on silent, but I glanced at it during a break in the presentation about authentication protocols for historical evidence. Tyler, sold your junk collection for $8,000. You're welcome. That antique dealer finally gave me a decent offer. Before I could process that message, another came through. Dad, about time someone cleaned out that storage unit. Tyler's paying this month's rent with the money. Smart thinking, son. I stared at my phone screen, my mind racing through the implications. I typed back carefully. Me, toted. District Attorney Morrison noticed my expression. Everything all right, Agent Parker? No, ma'am. I need to make a phone call. It's urgent. She nodded and I stepped out of the conference room, already dialing my supervisor at the FBI's art crime team. Jenkins, he answered. Sir, it's Parker. We have a situation. The Castellano collection. Someone just sold it. Pause. The protected evidence. The items seized from the Castellano estate that you've been authenticating for the past 14 months. Sir, my brother just texted me that he sold my junk collection to an antique dealer for $8,000. Your brother sold federal evidence? He didn't know it was federal evidence. My family thinks I'm a history teacher. They don't know I'm a special agent with the art crime team. The collection was stored in a unit registered under my name while I completed the authentication process. Jesus Christ, Parker. Do you know which dealer? Not yet, but I can find out. And sir, we need to move fast. If those items enter the black market before we recover them, the entire Castellano case could be compromised. Agreed. I'm authorizing an immediate evidence tampering investigation. Get me the dealer's information and location. I'll have a team ready within the hour. I called my brother. He answered on the third ring, sounding pleased with himself. Hey Ethan, did you see my text? Pretty good deal, right? That guy came up from the $6,000 he originally offered. Tyler, I need the name and address of the dealer you sold to. Right now. Whoa, calm down. Why are you so worked up? It was just your old stamp collection and those weird documents. You've had that stuff sitting in storage for over a year. I figured you forgot about it. Tyler. The name. Now. Geez. His name is Marcus Webb. He has a shop called Webb Antiquities on 14th Street. He seemed really excited about some of the stuff actually. Said something about rare postal history. I thought he was just being nice, but hey, $8,000 is $8,000. My blood ran cold. Marcus Webb was a known fence for stolen historical artifacts. We'd been building a case against him for 6 months. Tyler, listen to me very carefully. Do not spend that money. Do not touch it. Do not do anything until I get there. What? It's my money now. Well, technically it's going toward the storage unit fees and Dad's truck repair, but... What address are you at right now? I'm at Dad's house. We're having a barbecue to celebrate. Mom's here, Aunt Linda, Uncle Rob. Why are you being so weird about this? I'll be there in 40 minutes. Do not leave. Do not spend that money. I hung up before he could argue and called Jenkins back. Sir, the dealer is Marcus Webb at Webb Antiquities on 14th Street. Jenkins swore. The same Webb we've been investigating? The same. My brother just sold federal evidence to a known criminal fence. We need 2 teams. One for recovery at Webb's location, one for my family's residence to secure the transaction evidence. Agreed. Give me the address for your family. And Parker? This is going to get complicated. I know, sir. 45 minutes later, I pulled up to my father's house in suburban Virginia. 3 unmarked FBI vehicles parked behind me. Jenkins emerged from the first one, along with 4 other agents from the art crime team. 2 agents from the evidence tampering unit arrived in a separate vehicle. My father's backyard barbecue was in full swing. I could hear music and laughter as we approached the front door. I knocked firmly. Professional. Visual. My mother answered, her smile fading when she saw my expression and the group of people behind me. Ethan, what's wrong? Why do you look so serious? And who are all these people? Mrs. Parker, I'm Supervisory Special Agent Jenkins with the FBI's art crime team. We need to speak with you and your family immediately regarding the sale of protected federal evidence. My mother's face went blank with confusion. FBI? Federal evidence? I don't understand. My father appeared behind her, his face already reddening. What the hell is this? Ethan, what's going on? Dad, let us in. This is official FBI business. The backyard went silent as we walked through. Tyler stood by the grill, spatula in hand, his mouth open in shock. My aunt and uncle froze mid-conversation. Even the music seemed to quiet. Jenkins took the lead, his voice carrying across the yard. I'm Supervisory Special Agent Jenkins, FBI Art Crime Team. We're here regarding items sold today from a storage unit registered to Special Agent Ethan Parker. Those items are protected federal evidence in an ongoing criminal investigation. Their sale constitutes evidence tampering and potential obstruction of justice. My father's beer bottle slipped from his hand, shattering on the patio. Special Agent? Ethan's a history teacher at Roosevelt High School. No, sir, Jenkins said calmly. Your son is a special agent with the FBI's art crime team. He specializes in document authentication and art fraud investigation. He's held this position for 7 years. Tyler dropped the spatula. Your FBI? Yes, I said quietly. I've been a federal agent since I graduated from the FBI Academy at Quantico. Before that, I got my doctorate in art history from Yale with a specialization in document forensics. The junk collection you sold was evidence seized from the Castellano crime family estate. Documents and artifacts worth approximately $850,000 that I've been authenticating for a major RICO case. The silence was absolute. My mother grabbed a chair for support. $850,000? At minimum, Jenkins confirmed. The collection includes rare historical documents, authenticated correspondence from several U.S. presidents, and postal artifacts that are critical evidence in a $40 million fraud and money laundering case against the Castellano organization. Special Agent Parker has spent 14 months carefully authenticating each item and documenting their provenance for trial. Tyler's face had gone from red to white. I sold federal evidence to a criminal? You sold federal evidence to Marcus Webb, who is currently under investigation for trafficking in stolen cultural property, Jenkins said. An investigation your brother has been working on for the past 6 months. Agent Chin from the Evidence Tampering Unit stepped forward. Tyler Parker, we need you to provide a full statement regarding the sale. We also need the $8,000 you received, as it constitutes proceeds from the sale of federal property. The money's already gone, my father said weakly. Tyler gave me $5,000 for my truck transmission repair. The rest went to paying off the storage unit fees and Tyler's credit card. Jenkins turned to me. How did they access your storage unit? I'm wondering the same thing, I said looking at Tyler. My brother shifted uncomfortably. You gave me the access code last year when I helped you move some furniture. I wrote it down. And Mom had a spare key you gave her for emergencies. So you used access I gave you for helping me move to sell federal evidence without my permission or knowledge? I thought it was just your old collection. That stuff you were obsessed with in college. You said you were storing some personal items while you traveled for work. You never said it was evidence or that it was valuable or that you were FBI. Tyler, I said carefully, did it occur to you to call me before selling my property? Regardless of what you thought it was worth. I texted you. You texted me after you'd already completed the sale. My Aunt Linda spoke up, her voice shaking. Ethan, surely you can explain to your bosses that this was a mistake. Tyler didn't know. That's not how federal evidence chain of custody works, Jenkins said. Ignorance doesn't excuse evidence tampering. Those items were under federal protection. Their sale has potentially compromised a major criminal investigation. My Uncle Rob, a lawyer, cleared his throat. What exactly are the legal implications here? Agent Chin responded. At minimum, Tyler Parker faces potential charges of evidence tampering, theft of federal property, and obstruction of justice. Each charge carries significant penalties. The good news is that we know where the evidence is and can recover it. The bad news is that its chain of custody has been broken, which could affect its admissibility in trial. But I didn't steal it. Tyler protested. It was in Ethan's storage unit. How was I supposed to know? You weren't supposed to sell property that wasn't yours without permission, Jenkins said flatly. Federal evidence or not, you sold items belonging to your brother without his authorization. That alone is theft. My mother was crying now. This can't be happening. Then fix this. Tell them it was a family misunderstanding. Mom, I can't fix this. Tyler sold evidence in a federal case. That's not something I can make disappear because we're related. My father finally found his voice. 7 years. You've been FBI for 7 years and you never told us. I tried to tell you when I got the position. You told me I was wasting my education and should have become a real teacher with benefits instead of chasing some government job. So I stopped trying to explain. But a history teacher. I never said I was a history teacher. You assumed that because I have a history degree. I said I work in historical research and documentation. Which is true. I research and document historical artifacts as evidence for federal cases. You assumed I meant I taught high school. I didn't correct you because every time I tried to explain my actual work, you dismissed it as a waste of time. Tyler sat down heavily on a deck chair. $850,000. Oh my God. Webb only gave me $8,000. He ripped me off for almost $1 million. Webb is a criminal fence, I explained. Of course he ripped you off. He knew exactly what those items were worth. That's why he's under investigation. And now you've handed him evidence that could have put him and the Castellano family away for decades. Jenkins's phone rang. He stepped away to answer it, then returned with a grim expression. Recovery team just hit Webb's shop. He's in custody, but several items from the collection are already gone. He sold them this afternoon to an overseas buyer. They're being shipped out tonight. Which items? I asked urgently. The Lincoln correspondence and the Revolutionary War postal documents. I closed my eyes. Those were two of the most critical pieces. Letters that directly tied the Castellano family to historical document fraud and money laundering schemes dating back 30 years. We can intercept the shipment, Jenkins said. But this is going to delay the trial by months, maybe years. The defense will argue chain of custody was compromised. And they'll be right. All because of a barbecue celebration, I said quietly. My father bristled. Don't put this on us. You're the one who didn't tell us what you really did. I'm the one who stored federal evidence in a secured facility with restricted access that you violated, I shot back. I'm the one who spent 14 months carefully authenticating and documenting every single item in that collection. I'm the one who's now going to have to explain to a federal prosecutor why evidence in his case was sold to a criminal fence because my family thought I collected junk. Agent Morrison from evidence tampering cleared her throat. We need to conduct formal interviews with everyone present. Tyler Parker, you'll need to come to the federal building for a full statement. Mr. and Mrs. Parker, we'll need your statements as well regarding knowledge of the storage unit access. Are we being arrested? My mother asked, her voice barely a whisper. Not at this time, Morrison said. But the U.S. attorney will review the case and determine if charges will be filed. Cooperation will be a factor in that determination. Tyler stood up looking ill. I cooperate. I'll tell you everything. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Your knowledge or lack thereof doesn't change the fact that you sold federal evidence, Jenkins said. It may affect sentencing but not culpability. My Aunt Linda spoke up again. This is insane. You're going to destroy your family over some old papers. Those old papers are evidence in a case against a crime family responsible for fraud, money laundering, and 3 murders, I said sharply. And I'm not destroying my family. Tyler destroyed his own future when he decided to sell property that wasn't his without asking permission. But family should come first, she insisted. Tell me, I said coldly, if Tyler had stolen a car, would you expect me to cover for him because we're family? If he'd robbed a bank, should I hide him from the law? Where exactly is the line where family loyalty trumps federal law? Silence. That's what I thought, I continued. You want me to value family over law when it benefits you. But if Tyler had stolen from a stranger, you'd expect that stranger to press charges. You'd expect the police to investigate. You'd expect justice to be served. The only difference here is that the victim of Tyler's theft is the federal government, and the investigator is me. My father shook his head. I don't even know who you are. I'm the same person I've always been, Dad. You just never bothered to really look. You never asked about my work beyond the surface level. You never expressed interest in my accomplishments. When I got my doctorate, you asked when I was going to get a real job. When I joined the FBI, you assumed I meant I was an administrative assistant. You saw what you wanted to see, a disappointing son who wasted his education. You never saw the truth, a federal agent who's one of the top document authentication experts in the country. Jenkins interjected. Agent Parker has testified before Congress twice on art crime legislation. He's authenticated evidence that's led to the recovery of over $20 million in stolen art and artifacts. He's considered one of the premier experts in his field. His work has been published in multiple academic journals. My mother looked at me like I was a stranger. Congress? Academic journals? Ethan, why didn't you tell us? I tried, Mom. Every time I started to explain, you changed the subject or made a comment about how I should have gone to medical school like Cousin Jennifer. Eventually, I stopped trying. The next several hours were a blur of interviews, statements, and paperwork. Tyler was taken to the federal building for formal questioning. My parents gave statements at the house. Webb's shop was searched thoroughly, yielding several other stolen items that expanded our investigation. By evening, the barbecue celebration had turned into a family crisis. I stood in my father's driveway as the sun set, watching the last FBI vehicle prepare to leave. Jenkins approached me. "You handled that well," he said. "I know it wasn't easy. It was necessary. The U.S. Attorney is reviewing the case. Given Tyler's cooperation and the fact that we recovered most of the evidence, she may offer a plea deal. Significant fines, probation, community service. Possibly suspended sentence given the unique circumstances. And the trial? Delayed but not destroyed. We'll argue that the chain of custody break was due to criminal interference by a third party, Webb. The evidence itself wasn't contaminated, just temporarily misplaced. It'll be a fight, but the case is still solid. I'll need to re-authenticate everything that was sold. I know. Take a few days first. Deal with your family situation. Then we'll tackle the re-authentication process." After Jenkins left, my father came outside. We stood in awkward silence for a moment. $850,000, he finally said. Tyler sold almost $1 million worth of evidence for $8,000. That's what happens when you don't ask questions before taking what isn't yours. He thought he was helping. Thought he was cleaning out junk to save you storage fees. He thought wrong. And his assumptions just cost him his clean record and possibly his freedom. My father looked old, suddenly defeated. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Really? Because every time I tried, you made it clear you weren't interested. My work was boring government stuff. My education was wasted on paper shuffling. My career was not a real job. After years of dismissal, I stopped sharing. I kept my professional life separate from my family life because my family never valued it anyway. That's not fair. Isn't it?" I turned to face him. "When I got accepted to Yale's doctoral program, you asked why I was still in school instead of working. When I graduated with my PhD, you didn't come to the ceremony because it was too far, even though it was 3 hours away. When I got accepted to the FBI Academy, you told me government jobs were unstable and I should get something secure instead. At what point did you ever show interest in or support for my actual career?" He had no answer. "I love you, Dad. I love this family. But I'm not going to apologize for your inability to see me clearly. And I'm not going to compromise a federal investigation because Tyler made an illegal decision based on false assumptions. He's your brother. And he still has to face the consequences of his actions. That's how the law works. It doesn't have family exemptions." My mother came outside then, her face puffy from crying. "Ethan, the lawyer your uncle called says Tyler could face up to 5 years in prison. That's the maximum sentence for evidence tampering. More likely, given his cooperation, he'll face fines and probation. But Mom, that's not my decision. That's up to the U.S. Attorney's Office. Can't you speak to them? Put in a good word. I can confirm his cooperation. I can note that the evidence was recovered. But I can't ask for special treatment because he's my brother. That would be inappropriate and potentially illegal." She shook her head. "I don't understand this world you live in. These rules that matter more than family. These rules protect everyone's rights equally, Mom. They ensure that powerful people can't just do whatever they want without consequences. They're the foundation of our entire justice system. If I started making exceptions for family, how could I ever claim to uphold the law?" "But he's your brother," she repeated as if that should override everything. "Which is why this is so difficult," I said softly. "But difficult doesn't mean wrong. Tyler broke the law. He'll face consequences. And I'll continue doing my job. Those two things can both be true simultaneously." Tyler emerged from the house then, having returned from his interview at the federal building. His eyes were red, his face haggard. "They're charging me," he said numbly. "Evidence tampering, theft of federal property, and obstruction of justice. My arraignment is next week." No one spoke. "I'm sorry," Tyler said, looking at me directly for the first time. "I'm so sorry, Ethan. I had no idea. Thought I was helping. I thought that storage unit was costing you money for no reason. You thought without knowing the facts," I said. And you acted without permission. Those two things together created this situation. Is there anything I can do to fix it? Cooperate fully with the investigation. Accept responsibility. And learn from this. He nodded slowly. The agent said if I plead guilty and cooperate, they'll recommend reduced sentencing. Fines, probation, community service. Maybe no jail time. That's more lenient than most people get in evidence tampering cases. Because you vouched for me? He asked hopefully. Because you cooperated immediately and we recovered the evidence. Don't mistake prosecutorial pragmatism for family favoritism. The hurt on his face was evident, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort him. This was his mess to clean up. Over the next week, the full scope of Tyler's error became clear. The items he'd sold included authenticated letters from Abraham Lincoln discussing Civil War strategy, valued at $185,000. Revolutionary War-era postal documents showing early American mail routes, valued at $220,000. Correspondence between presidents and crime family members, proving decades of corruption, valued at $315,000. Rare stamps and postal artifacts used in money laundering schemes, valued at $130,000. Total value, $850,000. Tyler had sold all of it for $8,000 to Marcus Webb, who immediately recognized the value and began arranging sales to overseas collectors before we could intervene. The recovery operation took 3 days and involved Interpol coordination. We got everything back, but the chain of custody was irrevocably broken. The Castellano defense team immediately filed motions to suppress the evidence. I spent 2 weeks re-authenticating every item, documenting the break in custody, and preparing reports for the prosecution team. The U.S. attorney decided the case was still solid enough to proceed, but it would be more difficult now. Tyler's arraignment came and went. He pleaded guilty to all charges in exchange for a recommended sentence of 3 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and $75,000 in fines to cover the cost of the recovery operation and re-authentication process. The judge accepted the plea deal, calling it a cautionary tale about respecting other people's property and the severe consequences of acting without proper knowledge or authority. At the sentencing hearing, I testified about the value of the evidence and the impact of its temporary loss on the case. I was professional, factual, and completely honest about how Tyler's actions had affected the investigation. Tyler's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive. Isn't it true, Agent Parker, that your family had no idea about your career? That you deliberately kept them in the dark about the importance of this collection? No, I said clearly. I told my family I worked in historical research and document authentication for the federal government. They assumed I meant something less important than what I actually did. I didn't deliberately mislead anyone. I simply stopped correcting their assumptions after years of having my actual career dismissed as unimportant. But you could have prevented this entire situation by being more forthcoming. I could also have prevented it by my brother not selling property that didn't belong to him without asking permission, regardless of what he thought that property was worth. The judge agreed, noting in her ruling that Tyler's actions would have been illegal even if the collection had been personal property rather than federal evidence. 3 months after the initial incident, I sat in a coffee shop with Tyler. It was our first private conversation since the sentencing. Probation officer says I'm doing well, he offered. Community service at the Historical Society is actually kind of interesting. They have me cataloging their archive. That's good. They know who you are, by the way. The director of the society pulled me aside last week and asked if I was related to the Agent Parker who authenticated the Castellano evidence. Apparently you're kind of famous in historical circles. My work gets published sometimes. She showed me your articles. I didn't understand half of it, but she was really impressed. Said you're one of the leading experts in document forensics in the country. I sipped my coffee saying nothing. I've been thinking a lot, Tyler continued, about what you said, about how we never really asked about your work. You were right. We didn't. We just assumed. Yes. Why didn't you push harder? Make us listen. Because I got tired of being dismissed. It's exhausting trying to make people see you when they're determined to see something else. Tyler was quiet for a moment. I see you now. For what it's worth. I see that I screwed up big time. Not just by selling the evidence, but by never caring enough to know what you actually did for a living. By treating you like the family disappointment when you were actually this accomplished federal agent the whole time. I'm not looking for apologies, Tyler. I know. But I'm giving you one anyway. I'm sorry I didn't value you. I'm sorry I made assumptions. And I'm really sorry I sold your stuff without asking. Even if it had just been your old stamp collection like I thought, I should have called you first. Yes, you should have. Will we ever be okay again? As brothers? I considered the question carefully. That depends on what you do going forward. I can forgive what happened, but I won't forget it. And I won't tolerate being treated as less important than I am ever again. Clear boundaries, Tyler. Real respect. Or we stay distant. Clear boundaries, he echoed. Real respect. I can do that. Then we'll see. 6 months later, the Castellano trial concluded. Despite the chain of custody issues, the evidence held up. Multiple members of the crime family received lengthy prison sentences for fraud, money laundering, and racketeering. The prosecutor credited my work in his closing arguments. Special Agent Parker's meticulous authentication and documentation of these historical artifacts provided irrefutable proof of the defendant's criminal enterprise. Even when that evidence was temporarily compromised, Agent Parker's thorough work ensured its validity and admissibility. I received a commendation from the director of the FBI for my work on the case. My family attended the ceremony. It was the first time they'd ever seen me in my professional capacity. My mother cried when the director described my contributions to art crime investigation over the past 7 years. My father looked stunned throughout the entire proceeding. Afterward, at the reception, my mother approached me quietly. I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago. I'm proud of who you are and what you've accomplished. Thank you, Mom. We missed so much, she continued. So many years of your success that we just didn't see, didn't ask about. I regret that. I do too. Can we start over? Really try this time. I looked at my family, Tyler with his probation ankle monitor hidden under dress pants, my father trying to make conversation with my FBI colleagues, my aunt and uncle looking overwhelmed by the formal setting. We can try, I said finally. But it has to be different this time. You have to actually listen when I talk about my work. You have to value it even if you don't fully understand it. And you have to accept that my career isn't negotiable or dismissible. We will, she promised. We'll do better. A year later, Tyler completed his probation. He'd paid off his fines by working a second job and selling his car. He'd completed his community service hours at the Historical Society and discovered a genuine interest in archival work. They offered me a job, he told me over dinner. Part-time position in their cataloging department. Not much money, but the director says if I go back to school for a library science degree, they could make me full-time. Are you going to do it? I think so. It's weird, but all this time working with old documents and artifacts. I get it now. Why you love this stuff. There's stories in everything. History in every piece of paper. That's what I tried to tell you when we were kids. I know. I should have listened. I should have listened to a lot of things you said. My phone buzzed. A text from Jenkins. New case just came in. Renaissance paintings stolen from private collection. Authentication needed. You available? I texted back. Always. Tyler saw my expression. Another case? Another case. Go, he said. Do your thing. Save the world's historical treasures from criminals. I smiled. It's not quite that dramatic. No, but it's important. I understand that now. And I'm sorry it took federal charges and a year of probation for me to get it. Better late than never. As I drove to the office, I thought about the past year. My family relationships were still rebuilding, still fragile, but they were honest now. No more assumptions. No more dismissals. They asked about my work, attended my lectures, even read some of my published papers. Tyler's criminal record would follow him forever, but he turned it into a learning experience. My parents had spent months in family therapy, working through their tendency to favor one child over the other and their habit of dismissing things they didn't understand. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And at the end of the day, I was still doing what I loved, protecting historical artifacts, solving crimes, and ensuring that evidence survived to tell its story in court. My family had learned an expensive lesson, that quiet competence deserves respect, that assumptions can be dangerous, and that some junk collections are actually priceless evidence worth $850,000 and a federal investigation. They'd learned it the hard way, but they'd learned it nonetheless. And as I pulled into the FBI parking garage, ready to authenticate yet another collection of stolen art, I felt satisfied. Not happy about what my family had gone through, but satisfied that justice had been served, evidence had been protected, and everyone had finally learned their lesson. Sometimes the best outcome is the one where everyone emerges changed for the better, even if the path to get there was painful. My name is Special Agent Ethan Parker, FBI Art Crime Team. And my collection is never junk. It's evidence. It's history. It's justice. And it's worth fighting for, even when the fight is against your own family's ignorance. Because that's what integrity looks like.